Guys, let's begin with a simple question. Assuming the company has no other business than buying and hoarding gold, and let's say the company sits on 10,000 ounces of gold, and the gold price is $4,000 per ounce now. So how much is the company worth? And if the company gets listed as ETF, what would be its market capitalization? You may think the answer is simple. 4,000 times 10,000 ounces is $40 million. Yet the real world is much more bizarre than that. And MicroStrategy is the perfect case, which by the way is called Strategy Now. This is a company that almost focuses 100% on buying and hoarding Bitcoins. And in its heydays, its market cap stands at more than 8 times the value of Bitcoin it held. Which means that at that time, investors were willing to pay $800 to buy $100 worth of Bitcoin managed by Strategy. And why is that happening? Everything begins in the summer of 2020. Back then, the investment community was beginning to get crazy about Bitcoins and other cryptocurrencies. And then a raft of these cryptocurrency treasury companies emerged, whose only business was to buy and hold Bitcoins or other coins, paid by the money they raised through stock or debt issuance. Running a company has never got easier than this, and MicroStrategy was the perfect example. Prior to 2020, the company still had some other small but stable business. But ever since the founder of the company, Michael Saylor, spent $250 million to buy Bitcoins in 2020, the company has shifted to become a Bitcoin treasury that focuses on buying Bitcoins only. We can see from open records that the company's Bitcoin purchasing activity started in August 2020 and continued to this day, and stepped up after Trump won his second bid to the White House in November 2024. To fund its buying spree, the company had to keep raising capital. And over the last 3 years, Strategy had raised nearly $50 billion through stock and bond issuance. Now go back to the point we previously touched. The price investors were willing to pay was once 8 times more than the value of Bitcoin Strategy held. The only plausible explanation would be that the market had this tremendous faith in Michael Saylor's and his management's timing ability to buy low and sell high, which would compensate for the huge premium. Yet the company's track record shows that it's mediocre, if not poor, in timing the purchases of Bitcoins. If the management are really good at timing, then they should aggressively rake up Bitcoins while its price is low. Yet what we observed is that the company very often bought Bitcoins at relatively expensive prices. For example, on February 24th, 2021, when Bitcoin hit local high, Strategy snatched up 19,400 Bitcoins, cost over $1 billion. Then Bitcoin price tumbled shortly afterwards. Or you can see on July 29th, 2025, as Bitcoin shot through $110,000, the company went out and spent for about 20,000 something Bitcoins. And guess what? Bitcoin price had then collapsed. However, during the 2022 and 2023 period, when Bitcoin price was at floor, Strategy was hesitant to go out and buy. So altogether, the average buying cost of Bitcoins for Strategy was pretty expensive. And market value of Bitcoins it holds now is only a shade over $51 billion. Don't forget that the company had raised nearly $50 billion from investors over the last 3 years. The company's poor timing performance is somewhat mirrored with Michael Saylor's theatrics on public appearances. As investors, we love to see the captains of the companies we invested in being prudent, focused, and sane. Yet Michael Saylor seemed to be the opposite of them.
There's no second best crypto asset. It isn't slightly different. Bitcoin. Right? Bitcoin's a bank in cyberspace. Everybody. And that's the only strategy. And at the end of the day...
Many times, he seemed to be getting high during live interviews or other public occasions. For example, about 2 months ago, he was the guest at a Bitcoin-themed interview.
Just issuing debt to buy Bitcoin rather than being like a cash flow positive business.
Here the host raised a point, being that companies like Strategy has no other business to generate positive cash flows. And then Michael Saylor just went off.
Just an ignorant, offensive statement on your part.
Please tell me why.
Who are you to say they're just issuing debt to buy Bitcoin, right? You said that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's 400 million companies in the world. You're going to take the position that only 10 can buy Bitcoin? Why can't all 400 million companies buy Bitcoin?
Of course they can.
Well, don't they do things?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
but it's the companies that don't do anything that I am. Again, I'm not criticizing anyone.
The host politely added that, of course, all other companies can purchase Bitcoins. But he is mainly concerned with companies that trade Bitcoin as their only business.
Okay, but the point, but you're not criticizing a company that buys Bitcoin. You're criticizing a company that doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there's 400 million companies. How many of the 400 million don't do anything? Why don't you just focus on that?
I don't know how you feel after watching this bizarre interview. My impression was that, first of all, Michael Saylor has a serious emotional management problem, which is evident in many of his public appearances. And on top of that, his thinking abilities seem to be impaired for whatever reason. If I were an investor in Bitcoin, I would never put a dime in the hands of Michael Saylor and his company. I'd rather toss a coin to decide when to buy Bitcoins, which probably would lead to better results. And the numbers show that most investors do seem to begin to shun Michael Saylor and strategy, as the premium of his market cap to the value of Bitcoins held went from as high as 8 to below 1 now. Which means that if you spend $100 on the stock of MSTR today, you're going to get more than $100 worth of Bitcoin. It's exactly the antics of Michael Saylor and the poor performance of his company that have turned the premium to discount, which might only be the beginning of the end of this Ponzi scheme.
1,000 freaking years. It doesn't matter. Maybe. Maybe. Oh my God, good discipline. What is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is the first engineered monetary system in the history of the human race. Full stop. Just keep in mind, the basis of securities laws are biblical.